everybody who has been around will know that there is a lot of social challenges that emanate from how different people live in their families. We know that if you look at the number of children who are being defiled, if you look at the number of women who are being raped, if you look at the orphans in this country, it shows you that there is a certain level of instability that is happening in our families. And so fundamentally, before we go into what words to use, we should be saying that that is a reason enough for Uganda to say we need a law that can deal with the issue of stability of families and the issue of making sure that people are living in dignity. As you all know, we have been here in Uganda and we know the levels of indignity that women across this country are suffering. In this country is the country where you have 16 women dying when they are giving birth every day. And you know why they die? They die because of the relationships that they have with the men that they live with. So we cannot hide away from such fundamentals. So we think that it's important that the parliamentarians, that the government actually speaks about that fundamental. That if we want better Ugandans, we must make sure that those Ugandans are protected by laws that help to stabilize families. So that's the first thing. And so my colleagues will talk about other things, but I think that that is important. And therefore, we ask that government uses that as the basis for whatever they do. That their behavior now, where they look like they are disowning the bill, is totally against the fundamental that we are talking about. The other thing which is important to note is that this bill is not coming up with something new. They will tell you that this bill has been older than many Ugandans. This has been an issue that has been discussed for long. And I think it's now the time that we need to do what we should do, which is to pass it into a law. We have been here for long as Ugandans, having these laws separated in different places. And what this bill is trying to do is to help us to consolidate things and make sure that they move forward. Of course, we can't say that every sentence in the bill is now the best sentence. No. The language can be changed and the language can be improved. But I think let's not lose the strategic value. And what we are not seeing, even from the media, even from the parliamentarians and government, is that focus on the strategic value of the bill. And I think that for us, we think that this is something that we should continue to engage with as Ugandans, and we should not be derailed by a few things. Of course, the contentious issues that are there, they are institutions and people who are experts, who will help us to define cohabitation well, who will help us to deal with the issue of conjugal rights, who will help us to make sure that all those things are clarified. But I think for me, fundamentally, I wanted to say that this is the first, the important point why we think that for us we are behind this bill. That it's important that we do not forget the strategic value that it gives. But having said that, I'll give my colleagues each one of a couple of minutes to say something, and then we shall take a few questions as we move.
Let them bring practically what they want to see amended, so that we don't have a general happiness discussion that we have abandoned widow inheritance, that we do not want women to own property. That is not how the discussion should be taking place. And I think the media has an important role to play. The second point I want to make is I am totally disappointed as a taxpayer with our government. How do you generate a piece of legislation like this? You speak to the Minister of Gender, he's saying something else. You speak to the President, he's writing a memo. You speak to MPs, they are completely... Where did it come from? I think this is this simply reflects how disorganized our government is. This is what you should be reporting. They are completely unserious because they develop something and go and disown it. Start speaking things that are not even in the bill. So I think that is a message our officials in government need to take. Now the public are terribly misinformed. Partly because we have not played our role well. We, when I say we, are those who support it, including media. I have read, I'm not going to mention any radio or TV station, but some of the lines you see, they are misrepresenting. this particular bill. So please, educate yourselves so that a proper platform is created for informed discussion, not emotional discussion. That, I think, is extremely important. Now, two final points I want to make. We should not look at this particular piece of legislation in isolation with all that is happening. Ask yourself, why is it all of a sudden everybody wants to consult on the marriage and divorce bill? Do you know how the cultural leaders bill was passed into an act which affected cultural leaders? Did they consult anybody about that? Didn't it pass? You remember that? The interception of communications bill? Did they go to the public? Did Museveni give MPs 5 million to go and consult on the interception of communication bill? He did not. Why then all this hullabaloo? So we should not be taken for a ride as Ugandans. As men, I stand strongly to support the marriage and divorce bill because I know it's about dignity of women, it is about stability of the family, and it is about societal progress. Three important points we need to remember. We will have disagreements here and there about this clause, that clause, can you amend it? The Catholic Church said remove the word divorce from the title. All those can be considered. If you want to treat divorce inside the bill itself, let's have a section and we talk about how divorce is dealt with. If you have a problem about widow inheritance, let's have a proper section on widow inheritance and discuss that clearly in the bill, instead of saying we don't want widow inheritance. Sometimes this is a cultural practice that happens and we need to discuss practically how to improve it. So my final point, really, an appeal to Ugandans and the media. One, we should all accept that the spirit and the essence of this legislation is for society. It is for your daughters, it is for your children, it is for the future. It should not define simply the current, that I have many wives, I'm afraid if they are going to come and take my house. That's how many politicians are thinking, because they're involved in such inappropriate relationships. But they should think about their children. Tomorrow, 20 years, most of these guys opposed to the bill, they will not be there. But you and your children will be around. So we must, first and foremost, deal with the fundamental, which is support this legislation. Let us test it. If there are challenges that would emerge with it, there is always a process of amendment. So let us mobilize greater public support. Let's take it as a challenge. MPs and politicians are telling us that the population has resoundly rejected this legislation. That is not true. A survey that New Vision did, there are very many MPs that actually have positive messages about this legislation. Can I mention a few names for you? Kahinda Utafire. Do you know what Kahinda Utafire said about this legislation? I support the bill. We have kept it for a long time, and most of the things being contested, like cohabitation, are a reality. We cannot bury our heads in the sand. Let the bill be passed once and for all. Who is that? Major Kahinda Utafire. Another one I am going to read for you. These are MPs that are doing a good job. Many of them who are saying we are organizing rallies in Dokolo, in Tororo, they are not doing a good job. Listen to this. Margaret Komohanji, Nakasongola, woman MP. I had a radio program for 3 hours. Underline, I had a radio program for 3 hours, during which I explained the clauses in the bill to my people. And all the comments I got were positive in support of the bill. I explained to them that the existing laws are colonial laws which we need to repeal. This is a woman who has taken time, 3 hours, to explain 178 clauses. And then the perception has changed. You listen to what Wafula Obutu did. I had 31 rallies. And in all these rallies, they rejected the bill. How can you present 31 rallies in how many days? Don't accept that as useful. They are taking Ugandans, reject that. How did you conduct the rally? They go to, and your NTV has done an excellent job covering some of these rallies. They just go, do you support this? How? People have not understood it. How do you want them to make judgment on them? So challenge these MPs with facts. And several of the organizations in civil society have done so much research. All these 178 clauses on TV and radio is going to make marketing sense for you only if we agree that this is important to be done. Let us explain and provide the right information if Ugandans need that, so that everybody is debating from an informed position. We shall be working with the women's movement, we as men champions, to actually do that serialization so that people understand it